Recording in progress.
Yes, I am still good.
No, I had my computer on, so it's sitting with me.
Hello, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute or two. We need to make sure all of us up here are logged in. So, and I apologize, we were a little late in our pre-session, but we got a lot done. So. Okay. Tim logged in? Okay. Okay, it looks like we're ready to go. I'd like to now call the January 10th, 2023 Longmont City Council regular session to order. As you know, we've turned back into in-person meetings, but if you would like to wear a mask, you please do that if you feel more comfortable. You can watch this live stream on the city's management portal at www.longmontcolorado.gov, agendas and meetings, and agenda management portal. You can also watch it on the city's YouTube channel at Longmont YouTube. And the Longmont Public Media is also live streaming this at longmontpublicmedia.org/watch, and also at Comcast channels 8 and 880. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Peck.
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember McCoy.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters.
Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilmember Yarbrough is out of the country, so she is logging in via Zoom. So let's stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So anyone that is wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers, and only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have the opportunity to speak during final call, public invited to be heard. And anyone wishing to speak on second reading or public hearing items are asked to add their name to the speaker list for each particular item. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes, and we would like you to please give us your name and address. May we have the approval of the minutes for, I don't think there's any minutes. I don't think we have any to approve. So we are at the agenda revisions and submissions of documents. Do any counselors have any revisions or submissions of documents that they would like to put on the agenda? Any motions? Seeing none from the other counselors, I do have 3 motions that I am going to bring up. So I'm going to move to amend tonight's agenda to move the discussion and presentation of the Broncos funding from the general business portion at the end of the meeting to our presentation, special reports and presentations. And the reason I want to do this is that when we put things, this is an important item, when we put things on the general discussion at the end of the meeting, very few people are still tuning in or have left the chamber. So that's why I would like to move it up. Second. So I've moved that. Councillor McCoy has seconded it. We're open for discussion. Seeing none, let's vote on that, please. Oh, you just popped up. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. In terms of the council discussing this, what impact does that have, moving it from general business up higher in the agenda? Will we discuss it the same way we would during general business?
Yes, thank you for that question. And the reason I want to do it is that the three I guess applications for these dollars have presentations, and I would like the public to be able to see them. Since
That's fine, just so we still have a discussion on it.
Of course. All right, let's vote, please. I think we're waiting for one more.
Councilmember Yarbrough, are you able to vote?
Yes, I'll just say yes.
Thank you. So it looks like it passes unanimously. So that'll be in our presentations tonight. I need to close this so I can see my, there we go. The other motion that I want to make, we all got an email from Janice Roban from Sister Cities with telling us what it is going to cost to move the fire truck that we've donated to Ciudad Guzman. So I'm going to move to fund the Sister Cities organization up to $10,000. It may not cost that, but up to $10,000 from the City Council Contingency Fund to finance the incurred costs to move the donated fire truck to Ciudad Guzman, Mexico. Seconded. So that's been seconded by Councillor McCoy. Any discussion? For the people in the audience, I will read to you what the Sister Cities director has written to us. She said that they've determined that it'll cost approximately $4,000 US to export the truck to Mexico. And, oh, I'm sorry, can you take that down, right? Because it's blocking my notes that I wrote. The voting. Oh, thank you. I didn't know that was available. And she's also estimating that it'll cost $500 in fuel to get it to the border, and another $500 to get from Laredo to Guzman, plus the cost of tolls in Mexico. Additionally, there's going to be travel costs for Carlos and another firefighter to travel to Colorado. Israel has located additional equipment that they're going to need, but it costs $200 for the box. I have no idea what that is. I'm assuming it's mechanical tools that they'll need. So let's vote. That's what the money is for. It may not cost $10,000, but up to that amount for any other incurred costs. Councilor Yarbrough has thumbs up. Thank you, Shakita. So that passes unanimously. Let's see. All right. The next motion that I have is I move to direct staff to schedule, whoops, let me get rid of that again. To schedule a meeting during the first quarter of 2023 for a discussion of council rules of procedures and establish, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble talking tonight, and establish an ethics committee.
Second.
So that's, I've moved that, and it's seconded by Councilor McCoy. Let's have a discussion. Seeing no discussion, let's vote. Thumbs up from Councilor Yarbrough. So with that, I'm assuming it passed unanimously? Yes. Thank you very much. That's it from me. Aren't you glad? So the next thing we have are our city manager's report.
No report, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. On special reports and presentations, I have a proclamation to read, and it's a proclamation designating January 15th through the 21st of 2023 as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas January 16th, 2023 marks the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on which we honor Dr. King's unwavering fight for the absence of oppression and the presence of opportunity for all, who sacrificed to sow the seeds for a movement of peace, equality, and justice. And whereas across the nation, in the state of Colorado and in the city of Longmont, honoring Dr. King has become a week of service within our communities. Events held throughout Boulder County are made possible by the commitment and dedication of many volunteers from diverse backgrounds. The combined efforts of these volunteers are a fulfillment of Dr. King's dream and highlight the importance of the civil rights movement and the need to take action. And whereas Mr. Lance Hoshiko, photo conductor and manufacturing automation systems engineering manager, and Lexmark International Incorporated for their many years of above and beyond faithful support and service in sharing the importance of social justice, the civil rights movement, Dr. King's legacy, and keeping the dream alive for future generations throughout the Boulder County. Now therefore, I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me, and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim the week of January 15th through the 21st, 2023, as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, and invite all to attend this exciting program honoring Dr. King. So do we have anyone here to accept this proclamation? Oh, here she comes in her great hat. Can you turn on the mic for her?
Okay,
Thank you, Joni.
thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor and council members, and my dear friend, Councilwoman Shakita, overseas. Good to see you all. I am honored to be here to receive this and to receive it, and I'm going to introduce you to this phenomenal man. We've asked his crew to come stand with us, as well as the city people that have supported us for years. Let me tell you about Lance Hoshiko. This man, for years, has given in-kind contributions, donations, services in the form of printing materials. And everybody knows how expensive that can be, particularly when you're doing them in color. And then the other thing that he does, and this is at Silver Creek, for I know the past, I'm going to say 11 years, we have we've had productions there in honor of Dr. King. Well, each year he has had the, I'm going to say, executive chef of Lexmark get up early, create these phenomenal pastries and desserts and just unbelievable service. And then on top of that, he delivers them, has them delivered by staff, people that just jumping in, that are willing to follow him. That speaks to what kind of a person he is, an outstanding man, an outstanding young man that I am so honored to know. But in addition to that, they would come and they would serve everyone there, and up to and including. Well, last year, we added a Boulder County-wide celebration, and it was at the Dairy Arts Center. And it was an exhibit of Dr. Ernest C. Withers, and we actually flew to Memphis and selected over 100 pieces. And long story short, we created what's called a keepsake brochure. We wanted it to be of the level that people would want to save it as a keepsake to pass on for generations to come. Well, Mr. Lance Hoshiko and his crew took on the task, I'm going to call it a mission, of producing over 2,000 copies of a 40-page brochure. And it is indeed a keepsake. Then Juneteenth produced an additional whole different production, 600 plus copies. And all of this is in kind. In kind. Now, with the work, the staff, and just people just willing to pitch in. And then he and the crew came and actually toured the exhibit. And that was such an honor, and it was an honor that I had the opportunity to share with him. And one other thing I'll mention is his phenomenal son, in the name of Trenton Hoshiko, has produced for our community productions, virtual productions, for those that couldn't get out and still can't get out for whatever reason, be it illness, age, whatever it is, just caring enough to put that kind of work into what it takes to do that. And it's just remarkable people. But like father, like son, then back to father, tonight we honor Lance Hoshiko, and it is indeed an honor for us to have him with us. And this year will be no different. We're getting ready to do some other events coming up post-MLK. As you read, the two celebrations countywide. The first one's going to be in Boulder at Jewish Community Center on January the 15th, which is Sunday. And Monday, of course, at Silver Creek again, our Silver Creek High School. Eric Finestead, principal. And we're just honored, and we want you all to please come and support. We love to see your faces. And with that, there are many other events that will be planned throughout the month, and I'm not going to entertain you tonight and read them all. I know you really want me to, but I'm not. So, but they will be posted on the websites. Thanks to Adriana, Carmen, and the crew. Thank you for your support. And with that, I'm going to present and ask if you would please, let's give him a standing ovation, Mr. Lance Hoshiko.
Sir, before you speak, even though I know who you are, I'm not sure everybody in this chamber does. Can you please give us your name, Ms. Woodley? Is that Ms. Woodley?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Madeline Strong Woodley, and I am the chair basically for all of the Boulder County events. the cultural events surrounding African American culturism.
Thank you. Mr. Hoshiko.
Thank you, Mayor Peck, and thank you, Council. I wish to commend Lexmark International for their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also thank my many volunteers who, for many years, have delivered the goods for the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you care to have a picture with us? Yes. Okay.
If I can have you all scoot in a little bit closer together, please. All right, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Now, per our motion that was just made, we are going to have the presentations for the Bronco funding. The way this was presented, it was presented to council to make recommendations as to what we wanted to see. So we have four actually, council people up here who have made recommendations for the funding. The first one is something that I have been working on closely with Vic Valla and Anthony, and it is a recommendation requesting from the Longmont Latinx Voices mission. So I would like to invite Anthony and or Vic up to make that presentation.
Are you not allowing Michael Schultzmeyer to make his?
Mind if I share that with Shakita real quick?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Shoot, give me just a second.
Yep.
This is full. Yep. Got it. Very good. I don't know if he can see.
He's doing Shakita. Pardon? Oh, no, I'm fine.
All right, all yours.
Mayor, city council members, city manager, Mr. Dominguez, thank you for allowing us to follow up with our previous proposal concerning the Bronco tax money. My name is Vic Vella. I reside at 1114 Sherman Street, Longmont. I was born in Boulder and raised in Longmont. I am the founder and president of Longmont Latinx Voices. We are a nonprofit organization certified to the state of Colorado. Our main mission is to help to make it an even playing field for are underprivileged and at-risk youth so they are able to participate in whatever activity they desire. I have coached for 39 years in Longmont, both youth and high school, baseball and football. During those years, just as it is today, our underprivileged and at-risk kids were and still are unable to participate in football, baseball, or any other extracurricular activities because of the cost to register or to purchase equipment, etc. LLV, we have data and costs to present to the council as to why it is important that we receive some of that Bronco tax money so we are able to help our underprivileged and at-risk kids participate in activities, but out-of-school activities, not out-of-school activities, sorry. Now I would like to have 3 of our members present data, costs, and success stories. They are Kerry Gutierrez, Andrew Thomas, and Jonathan Singer. And I thank you for this opportunity to let us speak again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time to speak. My name is Carrie Gutierrez. I live at 1200 Kim Park Street in Longmont, Colorado. I am a first-generation college student, and I'm currently attending Front Range Community College. And I was born and raised in Boulder. Tonight I'm going to be going to provide data to prove and show how much disparity there is between privileged children and underprivileged youth. You can see on this slide, you were provided, there's a graph that shows the disparity among children in poverty and those who are not. The data is grouped into an age group of 6 to 11 and another group 12 to 17-year-olds. The group is broken into elementary and middle school and high school. In both age groups, 6 to 11 and 12 to 17, children in poverty only some months were more likely to be in gifted programs than children in poverty all months in the previous year. Among children 6 to 11, 14.3% of those living in poverty only some months were in a gifted program compared to 8.8% of children living in poverty all months. For children ages 12 to 7, 23.8% of children in poverty some months were in a gifted program compared to 15.6% children in poverty all months. The rest of the data we're providing is from sports. However, there isn't much different in other activities as we just mentioned. The following data is from researchers at the U.S. National Center of Health Statistics, also known as the NCHS. Across the United States, 54% of 6 to 17-year-olds took part in sports in 2020. That includes 42% of Black children, 47% of Hispanic children, 51% of Asian children, and 60% of white children. 37% of kids whose parents had a high school education took part in organized sports. 68% of those born to college graduates took part in organized sports. As family income increased, so did sports participation. And as Dr. David Katz, who is president of the True Health Initiative in Tulsa, Oklahoma, summarizes these stats easily while pointing out the consequences. Children with less educated parents are far less likely to engage. These same populations are disproportionately subject to obesity, diabetes, and other ills, and abated by inactivity. Again, data from the NCHS from 2017 to 2018 identified more disparity. During this time, 36,779 youths participated in sports between age 6 and 17 years old, breaking down to males being 19,130, females 17,649, and then breaking down even more to the ethnicity slash race, whites being 25,522, black being 2,415, Asian 1,804, and Hispanics being 4,277, and then multiracial being 2,761, which then breaks down to household education, with parents having a high school diploma or less, having kids of 5,950. Excuse me, 5,958, and then with some parents having some college, being able to have 8,870, and then it increases more with parents having a higher education college degree to 21,911. Thank you.
Council members, city manager, wherever you went. My name is Andrew Thomas. I live at 2145 Squire Street. Sorry, I didn't mention that last time. My first residence was at Thistle Place. I lived there for the first 5 years before taking a 6-month voyage to North Dakota in the winter of 1982 when I was 5. My second residence was on Judson Street, south of Longs Peak Middle School from age 5 to 15. And I came back to Longmont in 2010. Every Kid's Sports in Bend, Oregon offers sports scholarships for underprivileged kids, something LOV wishes to do. Its executive director, Natalie Hummel, states it quite clearly. It's not surprising the discrepancy between kids of color and white kids, because there are so many places where there just are not any sports programming. Or what has taken over sports programming are really expensive club elite travel programs. She goes on to point out that club sports cost families $5,000 to $10,000 a year for families letting their kids participate. In the local high school where I am an assistant baseball coach, one of the players in the program is an exact example of what Ms. Hummel points out. His parents pay approximately $6,000 a year for him to play and train in club baseball outside of our high school program. Conversely, the head coach of our high school and the rest of the coaches have created a club team that only requires players to pay a few $100s. We will continue to do this next year and beyond. We're also trying to create a pipeline team for middle schoolers. We do this because we think it is ridiculous for parents to pay so much money when it is not necessary. Aside from that, equipment is expensive. Bats can cost $400. Gloves can cost $600. Batting helmets, $80. Catching equipment is $600. By the way, that's like double than when I was a catcher. This does not even include cost of pants, socks, protective cups, batting gloves, gear bags, sliding shorts, etc. Entry fee for a single player to join Longmont Baseball League is $140 to $210. LOV wants to positively affect as many youth as possible. If we were able to field one team in just one age group, the cost would be over $12,000. Like baseball, to fully equip a kid for football, we're looking at $650 to $900 a person. Club volleyball is $2,000 to $4,000 for ages 12 to 8. Karate is $300 a month. A golf pass is $350. Half the money we are requesting is to cover the cost of fees and equipment for as many kids as possible to participate not just in sports, but also other activities. 1/4 of the requested money is to cover the cost for many fundraisers to create additional dollars in the future. These fundraising events include dances, baseball tournaments, golf tournaments, and whatever other fundraising opportunities that we see fit. The remaining $25,000 we are requesting is to establish seed money so that we can grow income through investment to make our efforts perpetual and in perpetuity. We are in conversation with the bank to establish an endowment or some other low-risk but savvy investment. We're also seeking legal advice to set rules or guidelines of how we use the seed and investment money. These rules and guidelines will include a subboard with NLLV to accept applications and review nominations for scholarships. Thank you for giving me the time to give reasons why we are worthy of this request.
Here, I got it. All right, good evening, council members, mayor, and city staff. I'm Jonathan Singer. I reside in Longmont, as I have for the last 18 years, and now living at 2408 Mountain View Avenue. And before I was here, I was also in the state legislature where I chaired the House Health and Human Services Committee. And before that, worked with at-risk youth across Boulder County to ensure their success. So I wanted to share 3 stories with you very briefly about what that success looks like. The first story, and all these names are pseudonyms, starts with a kid named Tom. Tom came to my after-school program, and he was shy, a little skinny, wore glasses. I know nothing about what his life was like as a high school student. And he showed really little physical interest in physical activity and little physical aptitude. But he kept coming to my program. And eventually I discovered that artistic way and the organization that he had actually helped create new programs for middle school students. And he was so plugged in that at the end of my time at that after-school program, when I left to take another job working with our unhoused, he said, "You know what, Jonathan? You showed me that nerds can be cool too." It wasn't just a success story for me, but for those middle school students as well. The next student was a middle school student going to a before-school program. For those of you who know why we have before-school programs, the economics of today force typically both parents to work, both of them oftentimes leaving before school starts. And so students are excited to attend these programs in part because their peers go, in part because the programs are exciting, but also in part because their parents want them to be on school, on time, and in a safe place. So this 6th grade student showed up in my program, more interested in manga comic books than hanging out with her friends and her peers, and pretty focused on that. But she kept coming back. And eventually she actually came out of her shell, and the way she did was actually her peers inviting her to come as they said, "Hey, you look, Ayane, we see you. We want you to come show up with us. Be here with us." And this brings me to success story number 3. This was a young kid who moved across the country right before high school. And from sea level to Colorado's Mile High, he decided, you know what? I'm going to participate in sports, and long distance running sounds good if we're going to be a mile high. So in the middle of his freshman year, he joined an organized sport. Never really made it to varsity sports, but his mentors, his coaches, never really gave up on him. They showed the same attention to him as they would of any varsity runner. And now that student grew into somebody that started to invest in other people and to spend his time serving others. I don't know who that is. Oh, wait. No, I do. You're sitting in front of him right now. So what did we learn? That first kid taught us that mentors can learn from kids just as kids can learn from mentors. That young girl taught us how to trust in a program can actually build that internal growth to strive. And that third kid learned about success in sports, humility in success, acceptance of loss, and perseverance. That most things worth having take time. So this is why LLV is asking for the $100,000, because there are so many other success stories waiting to be told. And we want to create those success stories for as many underprivileged kids as possible. Longmont's story has been one of struggle, tragedy, violence, community, unity, and perseverance. When people asked me when I was getting my degree in social work why I wanted to do it, I told them I was returning a favor. I was returning a favor to coaches who invested in me, and I was going to do it in the way I best could. There are so many other youth waiting to have that favor bestowed upon them. The primary applications that you're going to see tonight focus on bricks and mortar, and that is smart with one-time money. But this group here today that I volunteer with is asking for a small portion of that, not for bricks and mortar, but for hearts and minds, because we know that youth grow up and time is of the essence. The tragedy that happened just last summer at the fairgrounds doesn't need to be repeated. Teams that work together, people who participate in after-school activities, you saw the research. It is incontrovertible that students who participate in before and after-school programs, sports or otherwise, academic performance goes up, GPA goes up, the likelihood of getting involved in the criminal justice system goes down. The likelihood of seeing further successes like we saw with those three youth also goes way up. So help us return that favor to this gen today. As you consider these other applications, consider this one, less than 1/10 of the dollars. And we look forward to seeing the conversation tonight. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vic, Harry, Anthony, and Jonathan. So stick around in the front because we're going to go through these three presentations and then council is going to have questions for you. So the next one up is going to be our own counselors. It's Counselor Yarbrough and Counselor Hidalgo-Faring have come up with their presentation. Counselor Hidalgo-Faring will be the one presenting.
Well, actually, we both will.
Oh, great. So Counselor Yarbrough is on screen.
Okay, hello. Can we get the presentation?
Sure thing.
Alice, can you move that camera down a little bit so I can see Susie? I
You
can't
bet.
see. Thank you.
My forehead.
Counselor Yarbrough, is there any way that you can, you're kind of muted a little bit.
I'm muted. You can't hear me?
We can hear you, but it's softer. Can you raise your volume?
Okay, is that any better?
Can
It's
you,
on 100%, so I don't know.
okay.
So
I
where's
guess
the
you're going to have to
sound
listen
coming out?
carefully in the counselor, Council chambers.
So the sound it's coming through our speakers up here.
Okay,
So
so,
it's all the same system.
okay, I was wondering if it's coming, if it's coming from here, I could move the mic.
No, you can hear us okay, right, Chiquita?
Yes, I can hear you all.
Okay. So, well, I can repeat what she said. So,
want-
well, what's that?
I didn't know if you wanted me to start or you just,
Yes, you can
How do
go
you
ahead
wanna
and
do it?
start. Councilmember Yarborough and I collaborated on this. Her portion, she will speak during her portion and her research, what she researched. I did community involvement or community input. And so I will be presenting the data that came up through that avenue. So you can go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you everyone for this, allowing us to have this presentation. Can you hear me okay? No? Yeah, okay, awesome. So Counselor Hidalgo Farron and myself we had a conversation about after the incident at the fairgrounds, the Kensington Park, and we just sat down and had a conversation about our youth and the future of our youth in the city of Longmont. And so we talked about what could we do to assist our youth in our community, and not just the youth, but the families of the youth. So we thought about how can we have activity, kind of pretty much what LLV was talking about. I know they talked about not, the brick and mortar, but the brick and mortar is important. We can store that equipment that they're talking about for those kids. So we came up with the idea of providing a multi-purpose dome or facility in the city, in the area where the city owns this property. And we kind of we'll get into more about that. But so, a dome is an architecture element. It's not really a brick and mortar, but it is a structure that is in a curved shape and forms, and we can pretty much do whatever we want to do with it. And so in this dome, we were just looking at what we can provide a supportive environment. I think safe is, we can say safe, but nowadays it's kind of hard to say safe, right? But we can say we can provide an environment that is very supportive, and that will help and improve social skills for our youth, and maybe even supporting working families. We know that's a great opportunity for our families, providing inclusivity, build interest and skills where we can improve self-esteem, community involvement within our youth. And we know that since the pandemic, the youth have lost some of those skills, like our social skills and the social interaction with their peers. So with this, our hopes is that this project or this facility will lessen exclusivity and marginalization, which often magnify the inequities and hinders positive, and hopefully create positive developmental outcomes for our youth. So because of that, why should we have this dome? Well, according to our Vision Longmont Comprehensive Plan, we want to ensure that all Longmont residents have access to arts, culture, and learning opportunities that need to thrive and prosper, and have youth initiatives to promote local initiatives, activities, and opportunities to retain and attract our youth. Pretty much like what LLV is doing and what they want to do. So we're all aligned with that. Protect civil liberties and ensure that all residents have equitable access to resources and opportunities to participate in the community and enjoy life, as we all would love to do. Access to facilities. This will be a great facility, like I said, to support cultural opportunities, where hopefully we can have meeting rooms if that is what the community want. It could be a performance location for kids. Collection resources, educational programs, and activities of all city facilities. Now, this is in our Envision Longmont Comprehensive Plan. Next slide, please. And also support healthy and active lifestyles among residents of all ages. Programs and activities develop, encourage, and support activities that enhance the physical, not only the physical, but emotional well-being and quality of life of our Longmont residents. And promote healthy youth development by offering a wide variety of appealing and purposeful and fun activities for all ages, backgrounds, and interests. Now that is in our Envision Longmont plan. So with that, we decided, well, I think that this is pretty good, what we're talking about here. And so we decided to go ahead and do this survey to see just a sample survey to see what our community is actually thinking and what they will want and what they think of the idea.
Okay, so I will take over from this section. So for those of you who do not know in the public, I am Councilmember Susie Hidalgo Faring. Outside of council, I am a full-time elementary school teacher, and I've taught third grade the elementary age for approximately 20 years, 30 years entirely in the profession. I have always taught in Title I bilingual school settings. I've come from family, my mom was an immigrant, and my dad, we spoke predominantly Spanish in my home. Growing up, and I think this is kind of leading into why I decided to collaborate with Councilmember Yarborough on this project. There wasn't a lot of opportunities. We did not have money, we did not have means. I'd go to school, come home, that was it. In the community that I teach in, I see a lot of the same. I see a lot of parents who really want what's best for their kids. They want their kids to be engaged, but it's not knowing how and not knowing where those safe spaces are. So, you know, in looking at this opportunity with this money coming up, to have essentially a hub where that is geared towards our youth. So, you know, if we plan this adequately, if we're really looking at what our families and community, our youth desire, this could be something that's very beneficial for a lot of our kids who fall between the cracks, who just kind of become disengaged. So it's really kind of bringing them back in. So what I did, and I sent this out predominantly to educators, parents, students, former families. I sent it out to our Teachers Association, and they forwarded it out to their networks as well as it was in the Times Call. And so we did get some feedback from people outside, so in the other category. But really, I wanted it to be student and parent driven. So we really targeted those areas. So if you could see on the community input portion of the 133 response that we got back, it is predominantly student and parent participants. So next slide, let's see, I got it. So one of the questions that was asked was would they support or utilize a multi-purpose athletic dome? The multi-use doesn't necessarily have to, it's not limited to sports and athletics, but you know, I had a section where it was open up for a comment. What would you like to see in those areas? It could be arcade, it could be just a meeting room where they could, their groups and their connections, networks can come together and have a meeting space. So it showed that people were very interested in seeing a facility like this in our community. And then we did a little priority ranking. And it didn't show up the entire thing, but and I had it both in Spanish and English. So responses that I got were in both languages. And when I printed out the chart, I put in the SurveyMonkey to give me the priorities to put them in order. So based on the responses that we got back, athletic fitness, and not necessarily organized sports, it was fitness, just opportunity to exercise, play ball. It doesn't have to be an organized or competitive sport. The first and second ranking was really high. The next one where our community ranked as higher priority, entertainment, which included arcades, mini golf. What were some of the other things? I had just various examples of what entertainment could include. And so that fell in that second category, with opportunity at the end of the survey for them to identify what would those entertainment categories be. The third one was STEM Technology Makerspace, following by arts, which would include dance, drama, theater, and then parks, outdoor activities. Some of those included that I saw in the comments were like miniature golf, water slides. So it's kind of out of the realm, but I accepted all responses. So, and some of the comments, some of the feedback, and I took a snapshot of the several statements, comments that I received, just ones that were reoccurring over and over again. I included on here, and some were just cut and paste comments that that people shared. But you looking at having that opportunity for volleyball courts, hockey, boxing, soccer, gymnastics, and something that I heard over and over again was looking at that opportunities for low income and at-risk youth. And so I was able to pull back. So when somebody shared a comment, I was able to look and see what were their other responses. And so the ones that were really showing concern for at-risk youth were educators, because we see them in the classroom every day. So that's part of our norm, just having an outlet for our students. A lot of the kids, the students, the go-karts, pool, VR, virtual reality, to share that, and cooking and crafts were some responses that students had shared. Community gathering areas, and that comment I heard when I looked at individual responses, that came from all areas, student, parents, educators, as well as the general community as a whole. And some of us asked to get more creative, include those showers, lockers, restrooms. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, with utilizing a dome of this magnitude to perhaps even having it service as a shelter during a tornado. Perhaps, talking with our city manager, perhaps there's FEMA money that we can tap in to kind of help expand. So that will be something that we can direct staff to look at if approved. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Councilmember Yarborough.
Right. Thanks, Susie. So I know many of you thinking, okay, well, how much would this cost? That's a really good question. I just want you to see the value of having a facility like this for our youth, of the value of having possibly anything in this facility for our youth that would be free for Longmont residential youth up until the age of 18. And so we can have STEM programs. We would love to have a kitchen and have summer camps in this. When we have our Arapaho kids that come from Wyoming, they have a place to come and have programming in there. So it's endless. We can have, and you'll see more when I show you more, but I just want you all to think outside the box of all the things that we can do. We love our parks, and the wonderful thing about this dome is in the park. The kids can can be interactive, interchangeable. They can go out in the park and have these programs and go back in the facility. And so it's just a great idea and a great opportunity, and so multiple ways for kids to participate and also our families. And so we are asking for $700,000 in order to have at least the minimum of the first year of operational costs. And it will also depend on how large the dome will be. And that means, what all are we gonna have in that dome? Will it be interchangeable for sports? Will it be a football or a basketball court, or both, tennis, pickleball, right? So the possibilities are endless. We can have whatever we want in that dome. So of course, it all depends on how large the dome would be, and also to make sure that it meets the building code. And during my research, an average of a dome, most domes are starting off around 30,000 to, it can go up to 4 million. So all of that could depend on if we decide to have a stadium in that dome. So there is, like I said, some domes is just for adults and they have bars in the dome. So, but we want this to be family oriented and targeted towards our youth. Next slide, please. So what would these operating expenses, what would that be? So the estimated annual operation cost is between around $500,000 to $750,000. There will be opportunities to leverage ongoing operational costs, such as we can rent out the dome, have conferences in the dome, expos, tournaments, graduations. We all know how many of us have been to graduations where it's pouring down raining, you know? So during inclement weather, we will have an opportunity to go into a dome. And so that could be rented out as well. As Counselor Hidalgo Ferring had mentioned, you know, a shelter in case of a disaster. We can, there are FEMA dollars that are out there. I looked it up and they provide a public assistance program that provides supplemental grants to not only the state, but also local governments so that communities can quickly respond to and recover from major disasters or emergency. That means we have a preventative measure in place if something like that happens. Of course, we don't want that to happen, but even if our sister cities, we can have someone, one of, you know, Louisville or anyone else, we have places for people to stay if we need to turn it into a shelter and put cots and beds in there for them. We can charge for those who are not residents of the city of Longmont. It would be free for, like I said, for our youth up to 18 years old, and then after that, a nominal fee for the rest of the residents in Longmont. Fee to anyone who resides outside of the city. Boulder County funds. I know, you know, we can look into that. I know they have recreational funds for things like this. Sponsorships, grants. I mean, we can look into these other opportunities to leverage out the ongoing operational costs. Please, next slide. So the youth, this could be, the youth center will be the one that we talk to the youth center and ask their opinion to see if this facility will be a great opportunity for them. As we know that our city is growing, our population is growing, and our youth are growing as well. So they will have more space for their programming to grow. And so they can have indoor practices, we can have exhibitions, graduations, like I said, fitness, theater, sport competition, cultural events, you know, mentorship programs. That will be awesome. We can have the internship programs from CU, Front Range, where these coaches or people who are in kinesiology, I can't say it right, but you all know what I'm talking about. These programs where they could come in and help kids to learn about how their body is doing with sports and things like that. We can have fairs in there. The possibilities are endless. Opportunities and for our students and parents will be this is great. Next slide, please. I don't know how many of you know about esports, but oh my goodness. In 2022, the global esport market was valued at just over 1.38 billion US dollars. And this is a up and coming sport. And I would love to see myself, our young girls, to learn about esports. Young kids are actually making money during this esports. And so I know many parents are like, I hate, you know, my kids are sitting there in front of a game all day. Well, let's talk about it. How can we assist them in a more of a structured environment for them, more of a safe environment where they're monitored by adults? This is not a thing in Colorado. Longmont could be one of the first ones to present the esports here in the city of Longmont. Gamers gain useful skills from participating in esports that help them on a broader learning journey, analytical problem solving, time management, collaboration, and also teamwork. So I would love to see an all-girl team. That's just me. I guess I'm a little biased, but it's great. So that's just another idea. Next slide, please. So there you go. Here are some more opportunities. Look, batting cages, weight rooms, and all of this could be sectioned off. There's a music venue. Little kids can do performances there. I know we have a theater and all those things, but we can rock out with a concert in the dome with little kids. You know, it's just so many opportunities that we can have. And like I mentioned previously, we can also, you know, store those equipments for other groups that may not have a brick and mortar. That would be a great opportunity. They could come in and use the lockers and use the showers. And hopefully we will be, if the youth center would love to have a kitchen, then that's what we would do. So as you can see, there's just so many great opportunities that this facility or dome can occupy. Not only would it cater to the needs of the youth in our community, but it can also assist our adults who may want to play pickleball year round, be mentors to our youth, and with the many programs the Youth Center offers, the possibilities, again, are endless. Next slide.
So before you switch over to the next slide, the other thing is, at one time we did have an expo space where we held our unity in the community. We held, I want to think, what else did we have? We had our teacher awards. There were, but that space is no longer available. So having a space, an indoor space that we can network with LDDA, with the Chamber of Commerce, Latino Chamber, to have that would be another way that renting out that space to help with ongoing costs, as well as getting creative with that, the space that we have. I think looking at the indoor, you know, for a lot of us, especially those of us who knew the family of the child that was shot and killed at Kensington Park, it shook us to the core. And, you know, to have a safe indoor space, I'm hearing over and over again from parents, they want their kids to be active, but they're afraid to let them out. So, you know, looking at how that would meet the needs of what our community is asking for, I think this is in line with what, that would meet those needs. And I'm going to move us to the next slide. Go ahead.
Yes, so I just want to also mention that I myself work with youth in my everyday work from 9 to 5. So I work with young girls, and I work with girls of color, and I work with kids in elementary school. So I understand the importance of making sure that we have in youth engagement within our community, and especially a growing community is very important. So you may ask, well, is it worth it, right? I think Susie and I have gotten responses, oh, put that money into our parks. Well, we're working, the city is working on that. We are working on making sure our parks are where they need to be. So this is something will be additional. So that is, you know, that is wonderful. So we have, the reason why we feel that it's worth it is year-round use. You can have extended playing season, you know, family programs. It's a revenue generator. We can control the weather conditions within the facility. Like I said, that it's a revenue generator, 50 to 75% cheaper to build a brick and mortar, and provide safe shelter for natural disaster, durability, and creative protective factors for our youth. So I just want to end on this quote that Sergeant Garcia from the Longmont Police Department has said to me. He emailed me and said that we need to have more protective factors put in place so that the youth will have a better chance of success. And we believe that this dome will accomplish this. So thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, counselors. So our next applicant is Counselor Waters, and he is going to speak about our museum.
This look right?
Yep.
Great.
What am I clicking on? Oh, right here.
Yes, you can click that guy,
Yeah,
or
thanks.
there to go.
Thanks, Mayor Peck and council members. Anybody else feel like this is a little bit like Shark Tank? So I'll make my pitch, right, to the sharks up here. Just for whoever cares about this, I think I got this ball rolling one night when we accepted a donation from the Stewart Family Foundation for $1 million to the museum. As I studied that agenda and was looking forward to accepting or approving that donation, I went back to look in our capital improvement budget at what we did for our museum, an existing asset in the 2023 capital improvement budget of $64 million, and realized we didn't put $1 in the capital improvement budget in 2023 for the museum. The expansion of the museum is in the capital improvement budget, but it falls into the unfunded category. So on the evening we accepted that donation, it occurred to me, since we hadn't talked about the use of the Bronco money or what to do with royalties that we will accrue that we do not have to return to oil and gas operators because of the renegotiation of our agreement with oil and gas operators, that would be, the donation would be a good time to respond to the generosity of the Stewart Family Foundation and all they've put into the museum, for us to use some of that money to advance work that's already been done. So to the degree that I created an interesting situation, the intent was to really make a statement both to the foundation and to the museum and our priorities as a council. But so that being said, here's my presentation. I do think I love the ideas that we've heard and the people who are presenting them. I just want to say. But I do think we need to make a real clear-eyed decision about what's the best and highest use of one-time money, right? This is money that we get one opportunity to allocate, and I think we ought to be clear of what the best and highest use of that money is. Whoops. We have one of the great assets in northern Colorado in our museum. We have a real clear mission for that property, for that asset, and a vision both for the current status of the museum and moving forward. And I think we ought to be clear on what that is. And I won't read this to you. There are some things I'm going to read to you. I won't read you the vision and the mission statements, but just understand what I'm proposing is absolutely aligned with this vision and mission statement and everything else, all the other investments that we've made in the museum. And we've heard about brick and mortar investments. That's what I'm recommending, because I do think that's the appropriate use of one-time money. Just a bit of context. The museum, with the advisory board and with Friends of the Museum, under the leadership of the museum staff, put together a strategic plan several years ago. And in the strategic plan, there are these goal areas, right? So I'm not going to go through all of them, but 3 of these goal areas that we ought to just focus on. One is leveraging and growing infrastructure in order to bolster a strong base for the foundation. Part of that infrastructure is master planning, and you'll see how that plays out in just a minute. Second is understanding the demographics of our community so we can best serve current and potential visitors. The third goal area is to reinvent, so the formatting we've lost, reinvent and expand our programs to inspire curiosity, critical thinking, and cultural literacy. 3 goals that are part of the strategic plan. Strategies in that strategic plan to advance those goals. So I'll just feature or pull out a couple of the strategies. One is contract for a master development plan. Indeed, with through the generosity of the Stewart Family Foundation, the foundation was able to engage with an architect and a planner, and the museum master plan was updated consistent with this goal and this strategy. Number two, create a museum cultural council, expand equitable access to programs, and under the Wonder goal, expand bilingual strategies. All strategies that go along with the goals of Wonder, a strong infrastructure, and discovery. So what you're going to see here is part of the master development plan. This is what came out of the planning process. This is not even architectural rendering, but the overview of what the museum would look like when it's fully developed. And if you just look at that, you see where the entrance is, you can see what's in yellow is that extended classroom area and children's gallery. But listed on the left side of that screen are all the things that were embedded as possibilities in the master plan. And I just want to stay there just for a minute. I did ask, what would anybody expect to see in an expanded children's gallery? And here is some of what was embedded in the work that rolled up into this plan. A space designed and built for children to explore, experiment, socialize, test theories, wonder, practice, and grow. To inspire the process of informal learning and growth, and for all community members to see themselves reflected in the museum. So the expansion of the children's gallery, all that, the intent is, would be reflected in this kind of an investment. In your materials tonight, there's a resolution that I drafted several months ago. When we talked about this in November, as I recall, I brought back a resolution thinking I would make it easy for us to make a decision, and for, in that case, maybe the city attorney's office who prepares these resolutions. And I'm going to read to you some of those elements in the resolution, because you're the only ones that have seen the whereases and the now therefore. And I think it's worth other people seeing it as well. So this is a bit of an edited version of the resolution that's in your materials tonight, but I'm going to read it to you. Whereas the Stewart Family Foundation has generously supported Longmont's museum for many years, and the Stewart Family Foundation paid for costs required to update the museum's comprehensive plan to be fully aligned with Envision Longmont. So what's in the master plan for the museum is fully aligned with Envision Longmont. And by the way, the Stewart Family Foundation paid for that master planning. The Museum Advisory Board has renewed and supports the museum's master plan, which is aligned with Envision Longmont. And I do think whatever we do with these dollars, we ought to make certain that our advisory boards or groups who give particular attention to how we spend our money and the product as a result of that have been consulted or we've heard from them. And in this case, that's already happened. The Stewart Family Foundation funded the design to expand the Longmont Museum when funding becomes available. So the design's there. They've put up $5 million, as I recall, towards the expansion of the museum. We've yet to match any of that $5 million. This is probably a $23 million project if we started today. But this would reduce some of that cost if we could direct these dollars to get a head start on that expansion by the use of these one-time funds. To keep going, the Stewart Family Foundation provided $12,000 to support preparation of a grant application to the National Endowment of the Humanities. Right, we have a proposal in that they help fund the cost of developing, and they put $4 million on the table in order to submit that grant proposal, which required a 4-to-1 match if we're funded. Right, if the grant's funded, it's a $5 million, it'll be a $5 million project or budget. $4 million from the foundation, $1 million from the Endowment for the Humanities. Just another example of the kind of generosity we've enjoyed from the Stewart Family Foundation. The foundation has committed $1 million to cover the cost of construction documents when funding is available to expand the library. So There's money in the bank. If we were to approve expansion of the Children's Gallery, there's already money to cover the cost of construction documents to do the expansion. The resolution goes on to say, for reasons understood and supported by the council, the city's $64 million 2023 capital improvement budget includes no capital improvement for the museum, and we understand why, based on all the competing priorities or needs in the budget. The museum is the city's premier venue for enlightened civil discourse, and the museum encourages, sponsors, hosts, facilitates, and curates multi-generation and multicultural learning opportunities, and the Longmont Museum Discovery Days, you're all familiar with Discovery Days, is probably the premier and most accessible, high quality, and affordable early learning opportunity in northern Colorado. In a time when we're looking for expanded opportunities for childcare and early learning, this is an opportunity that we can advance through expansion of the children's program at the museum. The museum epitomizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in virtually every aspect of the programming, their programming and operations. The museum is an existing City of Longmont asset worthy of additional capital investment that will serve generations of children to come. So now we get to the where, the therefore. As an excellent use of one-time funding and as an investment in the existing city of, in an existing City of Longmont asset, and as an investment in the City of Longmont's future, to allocate half of that Bronco money, along with proceeds from, or the accruing royalties from oil and gas operators, to put together a $2 million pot. We anticipate $3 million in royalties, half of the Bronco money for a $2 million pot to be committed to expansion of the library. Because, as the library is inviting people to find themselves, of the museum, sorry, I don't know how many times I said library. I'm talking about the museum the whole time up here. Find yourself, as the museum invites people to find themselves in the museum, it's fun to do because it is one of our greatest assets and it's worthy of this kind of an investment. So it's brick and mortar, but it's brick and mortar that serves a whole bunch of children in this community and will do so forever. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Waters. So now we can have an open discussion. Let's keep this to 15 minutes because it's been a long discussion, and I don't think we're going to vote on this tonight because we need to think about it, and we just got all the information that we needed. So I'm opening it up for questions on all three applications, and I see that Councilor McCoy is up first.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I just had a couple of quick questions about the dome. I would like to know a little bit about, the general idea about what we think might be maintenance per year. And also, I'm concerned about, we get these time periods where we get these massive winds, and how that might have a impact on a structure like that. I'm not against it. I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like, and then just general. Boy, I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Whoops, there we go. General oversight, management and facility oversight, and what that might look like a little bit. So, just trying to feel those issues out a little bit in regards to how expensive something like that might be after it's been put into place.
Susie, did you want to take
Shakita,
that?
Councilor Yarbrough, are you want to answer that?
I can. I didn't know if Councilor Hidalgo-Fearing.
Either one. Councilor Hidalgo-Fearing?
Okay, thank you. I'll get started and then you can add on anything that I may have missed. So in our research, we were looking at the materials. So the materials are pretty fortified. So, and there are domes, I was looking at some that are built throughout the nation that are used as disaster shelters. So they are equipped to handle wind or tornado. Well, tornado's a pretty strong wind, so, so it'll get it. So, you know, we would have that, that reinforcement. So as far as durability. As far as cost, it depends. One of the areas that we were looking at was at Centennial, next to the youth center, so that field, which, and the city manager can correct me if I'm wrong, it was 100, that whole area, which we probably wouldn't fill the entire space, 175,000 square feet. Is that right? Wow, my brain has not failed me. So in that, looking at something that would fit within that space. Their other thing is we were researching, things that I was looking at is if we did 2 smaller domes, and this was something that our city manager had recommended. And then I kind of looked at different cost items. I couldn't get a pinpoint to an exact, because then we'd have to commit with, really it's the city staff getting in touch with these individuals to give us exact costs. But it would be less expensive to do 2 smaller and then have a connecting hallway in between. So really looking at what would be the most feasible. If approved, then we can direct staff to further investigate and find what we could get for the best amount for our dollars. And if you want to chime in for anything.
Okay, so we have Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. First of all, I would like to say that I don't think anyone would ever argue the point that we need more structured programs for our young people, and especially our less advantaged young people, than we have today. All of these presentations, except Dr. Waters, have made only that part of the case. And I don't think we can award money based on the need case. We have to award money based on an economic case, such as the cases we expect from our independent nonprofits, like Hope and the Hour Center and other organizations that we fund on a one-time basis all the time. So I'd like to just talk about the necessity of going through a process to make these decisions. There has to be a plan that details the expenditures that are going to be made, much more than there already are. In the case of the museum, there is already a plan, there's already a going concern, there's already operational payments, and the money that Dr. Waters proposes to allocate from these windfalls will in fact be on, with any luck at all, a ballot question this coming fall, if it's not here. So a benefit that nobody mentioned of using windfall money in that is that it draws down the amount of money we have to ask the voters for, and allows the existing plan that's all fleshed out to proceed. And so that's kind of a double bonus, and I would like to see us make that decision quickly because it's inherently different than the others.
Councilor Martin, can I just interject something if you don't mind? We are only discussing the Bronco dollars tonight. We're not discussing any oil and gas dollars. We're just the Bronco dollars.
Who decided that?
That is what this presentation is all about, and that's what is on the agenda.
Well, it doesn't make any difference as to my reasoning whatsoever, but there were a lot of things that were not made clear about this presentation, including who got to present, because but anyway, let's leave that aside. My point is, none of these proposals are fundable. We should have the staff put together the process, and what I suggest that it should be is a simplified version of the application that our nonprofits use, and that the proposers should need to get the buy-in of one or more city advisory boards, such as PRAB or Human Services, or both, to bring a finished proposal forward for the council, and then we should approve funding that. But I can't vote for $100,000 for something that just says, well, we're going to buy sports equipment, or we're going to build a dome. The dome, there's not really much about ongoing costs, and it seems to presume the use of city resources for which there is absolutely no funding. So, if we try to move any money other than some museum money tonight, I have to vote no, but I really want all these programs, or at least I really want a lot of structured youth programs to come out of this discussion and to be paid for by this windfall. I think the LLV is the best because it's realistic. It says, I want seed money, we intend to become self-supporting, and we are really paying for the use of facilities that we already have. So it's perfect. I love that one. I think that all of the activities in the dome are great ideas, but until we assess our need and the utilization for our existing spaces, I don't know where the dome comes from. I mean, domes are cool, but we need to understand whether we need one or not in order to have these very essential youth programs. So that's where I say we go, and I would move that we direct the staff to set up a process by which not only these council-sponsored undefined programs be evaluated, but also the original idea, I believed, was that we would have resident-sponsored programs, which is, that's how I think the LLV program got started. There are some programs that weren't included in this for reasons I don't fully understand, because I didn't take it out of the council meeting where we discussed what presentations would be heard. But at any rate, I don't think we can vote on funding these. I do move on that we award the money to the museum, whatever is asked for out of, if it's only the stadium windfall, then half of the stadium windfall money.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez?
Yes, it was. That was a motion.
She made two motions.
What?
You made two motions.
You
I'll
made,
second your motion.
Which motion?
No.
She made
yeah,
two.
That was a suggestion about the process.
You technically moved.
Did I? All right, well then let's take the first motion first. I move to direct the staff to devise a process, and I suggest that process be like our award process for nonprofits, and that an advisory board be recruited to decide when the proposal is ready to be brought back to council for funding.
do we have a second for that? So that fails for lack of a second.
All right, then I still move to award half of the stadium money to the museum.
I would second that, except if it fails, we're done talking about the museum, and if there's a process that's put together, I don't want that excluded.
Well, I don't think that the museum proposal needs to go through that process because it has a plan, it has a budget, it has all the other things that this doesn't, that the other proposals lack. In particular, it does not have associated ongoing costs that aren't funded by the windfall.
I'll second your motion.
So that has been moved and seconded by Councilor Waters. Do we have any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez? Whoops.
Yeah, I was really hoping that wouldn't get a second because I don't feel comfortable voting on any of them tonight, to be honest with you.
I agree. I hadn't planned on voting on anything.
Okay, Mayor Peck, thank you. I'm in the same boat as Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. I kind of wanted, I was understanding that we were spending 15 minutes on this and kind of talk a little bit about it and then come back. I'm not totally against an idea of having some sort of vetting process and making sure things are clear. But again, to Councilor Waters' point, we want to make sure that it doesn't mess up anything else. So I won't be supporting that.
Well, in that case, I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn by Councilor Martin. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you. This question is about the restrictions involving the Broncos dollars. I know it was fairly vague. Will it cover, say, administrative costs? Or, for instance, one of the asks was essentially seed money for the LLV organization to create investment to keep their organization more sustainable. Would that be not allowed under the rules stipulating this money? Or is it, because it's vaguely youth-oriented, would it be allowable?
Jim, you wanna?
Mayor Peck, members of council, Jim Golden, Chief Financial Officer. I think you have all of the information that we received within the packet, but essentially it was asking that it be directed towards youth activity programs. So I'm thinking in general, if you're putting seed money towards something that's going to result in youth activity programs, you're probably good.
Okay. All right, thank you. As such, I know that it's not my preference to vote on allocation tonight, but for me, I'm really looking forward the expansion and access of our youth programs in the city with this money, and whether that be in use for some sort of capital improvement or directly into the expansion of youth programming or access to youth programming is not going to make a big difference to me. It'll be more about the sustainability and viability once the numbers are, I think, a little bit more refined and, not quite as large of a range in some cases. And so I'll be looking forward to a little bit more of a deep dive in that as we go forward.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from council, I do have a couple, and one of them is for either Andrew or Vic. So, Anthony, I called you Andrew. Both A words.
I'm Andrew.
So, my question is, when you're purchasing the sports equipment, is this equipment for checking out to residents, or is it for purchase of residents?
It would make more sense to do a check-in, check-out process, but there'd be checks and balances within that because we'd need tiered age groups. A 14-year-old can't keep his 9-year-old bat.
Exactly. Okay, and for storage of this equipment? I heard a little bit about if the dome was allocated, you would store that equipment in the dome? You would work out of the dome?
We've had that conversation with Chiquita. We would work more with her to finalize that process. However, we feel like that'd be a viable option.
So because we are just asking these questions so that we can finalize this, when you come back to us, we would like to have that finalized.
Absolutely.
As well as, so that's all I had for you. Oh, okay.
We have the opportunity to also use Longmont Youth Football space.
Okay, all right, so you've got that covered.
Yes.
Thank you. And then my next question is for the dome, either Hidalgo Ferrying or Yarborough. I heard something about a site location for your dome. Have you finalized that?
No, it was a suggestion. It's not finalized yet, but it is city, because it's city land.
Okay.
It would be a strong possibility.
My other question for you then is, are you planning on forming a nonprofit to operate this, or do you have the youth center that has agreed totally to to operate it? So you're shaking your head, Councilor Yarborough, is it yes that the youth center has said they would operate this, as well as look for funding?
We talked with the youth center. We had our meeting prior to updating our presentation, and we wanted to make sure that, because we don't want the city to have to do, recreate what's already out there. We just want to expand on the programming that they already have and how we can help them and to make it more beneficial. So yes, that property is right next to them. And so that would be the ideal to have it there. And then also they will be the one to run that facility.
So before you come back, because this is nothing more than a discussion for your ideas, before you come back, can you have those finalized?
Sure.
Totally finalized, the site as well as the operator.
But I think from my understanding that I guess it will be contingent upon if council approve it.
Exactly.
In order for the city to move forward. Okay, so you mean just get with the contingency of approval if the youth center will be the one to operate?
So what we would have to do, first of all, is if staff has okayed a site location, council has to approve that. So that would be your first step.
So Mayor, Council, part of this issue is based on on the development of these proposals and these ideas. We have answered questions that have been brought to us, but we have not spent staff time on these items because we don't have council direction to spend staff time on these items. So if council wanted us to, we would need council direction to spend time and dig deep on this. For example, Councilmember Hidalgo Ferrin and Councilmember Yarborough requested a meeting, and they said, what do you think the operating cost is going to be? And we said, well, based on what we have, here is what we think, but we don't know because we haven't dug into these items in detail. If council wants us to, councils can direct us as staff to work with the parties involved to dig into them, but at this point, they're just proposals in front of you.
Okay, so then my question, Councilor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I just want to make certain I was clear on what I just heard. I thought I heard that the division of Youth and Family Division had agreed to staff and operate. Then I thought maybe I heard something else. I just wanted to be clear on what the assumption is. Or the presumption.
Councilor Yarborough has spoken to, I'm assuming it would be Christina.
No. The question was, if this were a city facility, how would it be operated? And our answer was, without digging into it, we would assume that it would be some combination of youth and family services and recreation.
Okay.
But again, we haven't dug into it, and we don't know that. We would need direction to do that.
Okay, thank you. So my question to.
Do I still have the floor?
Oh, you do?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just, it got my attention, given what I know about staffing in the Recreation Department and Youth and Family Services. I just want to make certain. I have one other question.
Sure.
And it's just strictly, Eugene, as a legal question. Should we or should the LVV group have any concerns about any liabilities associated with buying and checking out equipment if somebody's injured?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. I haven't looked into it. I don't think it's a service that the city offers. I know there are organizations that do. For example, REI checks out camping equipment. We would certainly look at their forms. You know, my friend runs Boulder Valley Lacrosse that has a checkout program, so I think organizations
So
do.
there are waivers that people could sign to?
I would think so.
All right. I just wanted to make certain that there wasn't some unintended scenario, so.
So it is my understanding that LVV is a nonprofit and it wouldn't be a city-run operation, but I think Andrew has an answer for that risk.
We are taking insurance quotes right now for liability, not just on what we're asking for tonight, but for also our tournaments that we're hosting.
Thank you for that. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I was asking for some clarification on what the city manager said about the youth center staffing the dome. That obviously could not be part of the windfall coverage, so that would mean that at some future point, we would have to budget additional staff to staff the dome, correct? That it would be an operating cost along with, any maintenance of the facility itself.
Yeah, so again, without digging into either one of them, both the museum and this would carry an ongoing operating cost that exists. And so we haven't dug into those, but that's something that we would have to evaluate.
Now, I'm surprised to hear you say that about the museum, because there's an operating cost associated with the museum expansion in terms of the definition of the ballot measures.
Correct, and so that's looked on the full cost of that. But if you built a portion out of it but ahead of it, then you would have to figure out what that ongoing cost is in it ahead of it. So again, haven't dug into these and really dealt with it, but anytime you have that capital investment, you're going to have additional cost in utilities and O&M and things like that have to be incorporated in it. Again, because we haven't dug into this, I don't know if there will be additional staffing that will be needed in that piece. And when you're budgeting these, we can't assume if something is coming for a vote that it will pass, because if a vote doesn't pass, then we still have to absorb the ongoing operational cost.
Yes, although it seems like that analysis could go either way, because you don't necessarily assume. I actually, when I read the museum plan, I said, oh, well, so even for it to be meet the bar for children, it'd have to fund phase 3. And I assumed that there were dependencies, and so actually that money would be in a fund waiting for it to be time to do that piece of the museum plan. So that means that it would reduce the operating costs that had to be funded by the ballot measure.
And again, we haven't dug in. I don't think it would reduce, the operating cost is what it is. And so if you built the museum out fully, I believe you have I pulled it up while ago to look at, I believe you have a 4.9 in aggregate on that. Kim, help me out. Is it 4.9 million operating cost? So I've got it here. So when we look at the museum, when you have the full expansion, the ongoing staff cost is 1.8 million, and then the other ongoing cost is $500,000. And then the capital replacement is 800,000. And we only have this because we worked on it for the
Ballot question.
ballot question. So the overall ongoing increase is $2.3 million total ongoing. I got my numbers from the capital versus this interchange. So the total ongoing cost is 2.3 million. This would reduce some of the debt service that you were required to do, but it wouldn't reduce this 2.3 million number that we're talking about.
For operating costs. Okay, so, yeah, I don't understand exactly why it doesn't just reduce the capital. It couldn't just be structured in order to reduce the capital expenditures that need to be funded, and therefore reduce the debt service, and good enough. Everything else stays according to plan.
You still, in both of these, you still have an ongoing operating cost to actually operate the facility with staffing, utilities and that, and so.
But why would that be funded by the windfall is what I don't understand.
It wouldn't, the general fund would have to pick that up, and so that's where I was saying is, when we looked at it in this case, the total annualized cost is $4.9 million for the museum expansion. There's two components in the museum expansion. There's the cost of the debt service, and then there's the cost of the ongoing operations. It will reduce the annualized cost of the debt service proportionately based on the amount of money that's invested in it. It will not reduce the ongoing operating cost that has to be filled either via a tax increase or the general fund.
So I'm going to break in here and close this discussion because this amount of Bronco money, the full amount of Bronco money, will not cover the operating cost for the museum in any way. This is one-time funding for youth activities. Yes. No, this is to Councilor Martin's question about ongoing operating costs. I understand that we're talking about a bundle of money for the museum, and I'm trying to separate it. But this discussion is only about the Bronco dollars, not.
To be clear, if council said we want to allocate X amount of dollars, and let's say that is for one component over the total expansion, when you combine it with what they're paying, there is an ongoing operational cost associated with whatever that is. Then if something is put before the voters and the voters vote on all of it, then it is in that tax increase where it would have to cover the ongoing operating. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you put this money there and if it was going to cover phase one, we would need to build the pro forma out to look at what are the operating costs associated with phase one. If you phased the total completion of the museum into a phase one and phase two, or a phase one and phase two and phase three, however it's built, we would then build it to say what's the operating cost associated with that phase. And then if we move forward with it, we would have to ensure that we have that factored into the budget, because we don't know what's going to happen if something's before the voters. And again, I would state, we haven't dug into this.
Right.
And so if council's direction is for staff to dig into these all of these programs and really start pulling that information out, we will need that direction from you all so that we can engage in more direct conversations. But at this point, we've really just been answering questions.
Correct. And that is why I want to end this discussion so that we can decide whether we're going to give direction to staff to decide the operation, investigate all these programs and see what their cost, if they're viable, and help the people who are presenting them to make a presentation that's viable and covers everything we need to know. Does that make sense? All right, so I don't want to make a motion. Let's just do a yay or nay. Should we give direction? Those of you who want to give direction to council.
What?
Should we? Well, I guess we should make a motion. Do you want to make that motion? Well,
I thought you just said we're not.
I know, but
I would not have relinquished the floor if I thought we were going to continue discussing this. I think I should have the floor back.
we're just going to, what I want to know is staff needs direction on these proposals to either work with the applicants, or we need to end the discussion tonight and bring it back after council has looked at all these proposals, these three, and come to some conclusion as to whether we want to direct staff, which we could do on a motion at the next council meeting. So Councilor Martin, you can continue. But can you just wrap it up because we are way over our time?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I don't know whether the city manager was answering about doing a minimal amount of staff time to figure out the differences in operating costs for the ballot question, which is one amount of money, and one amount of staff time, or whether we're talking about directing the staff to do all of the work for baking these proposals to the point where, for example, they would meet the bar that would have to be crossed in order to fund a nonprofit for some other proposed project. I do not think that any of these projects, with the exception of the little bit of work that would have to be done to re-swizzle the museum effort, because there is already a plan and a budget, I don't think that these programs should have the staff do the work. I think the programs need to figure out how to get these works done. I made the suggestion of using an existing process and an advisory board to help them get it done. But I think our staff is already so oversubscribed that I don't think that we should spend staff time on something this extensive. I mean, all of these programs are a whole lot of work to get them up to the point where the council could make a rational decision on funding them. So I will certainly not vote to move that the staff does that.
So Councilor Martin, the direction that I am giving is that look at all these proposals. This was nothing more than a presentation. Decide what you want to happen, and then at the next council meeting, you can make a motion to direct either staff or the applicants to come back with specifics that we need to make a motion to vote on something. Because we're not making motions. They were just presentations. So with that, I am going to close this discussion. Thank everyone who presented their proposals tonight. And do we need a break? So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Oh, you're asking that. Where did they read it? And I thought, no, they didn't read it. So I will. So I'll make that statement before public environment. That I see several people. You know, even if they are, I'll scratch it off. So we're coming back, and it's good, public invited to be heard, but before I call on anyone, I see that on the sign-up sheet, several people put that they want to talk on gun legislation. I just want to make it clear that we are not voting on gun legislation. We are voting on a resolution. It's just a statement. So if you're going to talk to us about voting on gun legislation, we are not voting on that tonight. So the first one is Ruby Bowman. And as a reminder, please state your name and address. And 3 minutes. Ruby, can you turn on the microphone? There you go.
Hi, my name is Ruby Bowman, 1512 Left Hand Drive. I have comments about the use of the Bronco money. I don't agree that the Bronco money or oil and gas royalties should be used for the museum expansion. The money received from the Bronco sale should be used for sports, recreation-related activities. I recommend that a portion of the Bronco money be used to cover free admission days to city recreation facilities and swimming pools for Longmont children during the summer. They usually have a lot of free time on their hands when school is out. Certain museums and botanic gardens have free admission days throughout the year as part of the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District program. Why don't we create something similar for Longmont's children that's sports/recreation related? As for using oil and gas royalties for the museum expansion, I don't agree. The $3 million that the city received from renegotiating the Cub Creek agreements should go back to the city funds that own properties from which the oil and gas royalties derive. That includes the $1.5 million that is being proposed for the museum. Several months ago, I stood at this podium pleading with you to fund the plant ecologist and fire ecologist positions for natural resources in the 2023 budget. The budget was tight and therefore no funds to cover these positions. The open space program needs all its royalty funds. If any of the $1.5 million comes from open space royalties, it should not be diverted to the museum. City financial policy that covered oil and gas revenues says oil and gas royalties will be deposited into the funds that own the mineral rights, less any costs related to the monitoring of air and water quality or soil monitoring or plug and abandoned well investigations. It didn't mention museum expansions. I believe you'll violate the oil and gas revenue financial policy if you transfer oil and gas royalties for museum expansion use. Don't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Next up is Holly Norton.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Peck. It's nice to see you all. I'm Dr. Holly Norton. I live at 828 Vivian Street here in Longmont. I know that you are not voting on any gun legislation tonight. I would like to commend you on your statement regarding the need for gun legislation. I would also like to ask you to take it further. While I do recognize that it's important for our state legislature to enact laws across the state for gun safety and reducing the gun violence that is plaguing our communities, Complex issues like this require a kaleidoscope of legislations at the federal, state, and the local levels. And so I'm asking you, as our elected officials here in Longmont, to enact local policies and legislation that helps address gun violence that occurs within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Tom Smith.
Good evening, Mayor Peck, City Council, staff. I need some assistance, and I would like to follow up on a number of emails some of you have received. And as I learned today from City Manager Dominguez, you are probably aware of some of my concerns with regard to information access from the city via the website, as well as access from city employees. My quest started 12 months ago after the Marshall Fire. I pursued some additional information and some follow-up from issues with code enforcement regarding what I perceived, and I think photographic evidence would show some non-compliance with city land inside the city that was very threatening. It was in the Boulder County Community Fire Plan in 2005, 2015, I think, as well as the modeling from NENCAR. And that was pretty much of a farce with the planning and, with code enforcement. I made my wishes or issues known to Harold. After that really kind of fell apart, I started to learn more about zoning and coding and some of the different issues, and that has morphed into some zoning kinds of issues. Some of you are aware that part of my subdivision was being taxed by 2 different fire districts for approximately 10 years. I have found 4 different fire districts mapping our subdivision for coverage. Some of that has been straightened out. In October, some of you were present at Coffee for the Council. I made some requests and asked for some clarification from you about what we could rely on and trust. And I think it's a little bit the follow-up of that. And I urge you to, and Harold has told me the teams in the various departments are digging into some of the problems with the data processing and issues there. But I'd like to bring to your attention what a citizen consumer, who I think has been fairly active, has had to dig into and what some of the problems are. Mayor, Councilman Waters, City Manager Dominguez have received some of these things, and I brought a couple of those with me just to follow up with them. I think you're aware of the non-cooperation issues with Boulder County. I brought the documents that I sent to them, never got a response from them after a former city council person here and Harold helped facilitate a meeting. The zoning questions have come up. City employees have told me that these ponds, also on city property, threaten both the Greens and our subdivision, and I'm out of time. I've left these documents again for you. I'm going to be involved in an informational meeting about zoning and development on the property next to us.
Okay.
There are 7 pages I requested some help with, including this.
Mr. Smith, are you going to give us those documents to read?
I've sent them to all of you
Thank you.
and that was in October.
Okay.
If you could get these to me by Thursday at noon, so I'm ready at 6 o'clock Thursday night for the meeting that we were notified first.
Thank you.
That didn't have the correct information on it, and also includes a map that Mr. Burchett told me was outdated or incorrect. Harold and I could not find it on any city mapping today.
Mr. Smith? I'm sorry,
My
but your
time's up.
time is up, and we can actually talk later. I would be glad to call you.
You all have my phone number, my email.
Okay.
Please fix these things.
All right, we'll look into it. Thank you. Antoinette Kemper.
Good evening. I'm Antoinette Kemper, 1022 Fifth Avenue. The proposed statement on gun legislation correctly concludes that Longmont's 5 proposed gun control measures would have little to no impact on the recent mass shootings in Colorado. According to a 2019 Boston University study, neither banning assault weapons nor high-capacity magazines showed any statistical significance in reducing fire-related homicide rates. The 3 most effective state laws in reducing homicide rates were universal background checks, prohibiting people who have committed a violent offense from owning a handgun, and may issue as opposed to shall issue concealed carry permits. Colorado is a shall issue state, but applicants must first meet a list of requirements, including completing firearm safety training. The study concludes the underlying goal of firearm policy should be to find the most effective ways of limiting access to firearms among individuals who are shown to be potentially dangerous based on their criminal history without casting a net so wide as to prevent law-abiding citizens from purchasing or possessing guns. In the late 1990s, England initiated a complete ban of handguns and many long guns. Hundreds of thousands of firearms were confiscated from law-abiding citizens. By the year 2000, violent crime in England had increased so much that it had one of the highest violent crime rates in Europe and even surpassed the U.S. A 2013 study in the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy found no empirical evidence that gun control reduces crime. Countries and cities with stricter gun control laws are still among those with the highest murder and gun violence rates. Also, countries with high gun ownership rates, such as Israel and Switzerland, have very little homicide. The 2021 American University study of tightened gun control measures in Massachusetts showed they had little effect on the state's violent crime rate. So, shouldn't we be focusing on the root causes of crime instead of just the symptoms? Many studies have been done, the data exists, yet legislatures remain tied to more restrictive gun laws on law-abiding citizens while violent crime continues to increase. Why cling to a failed approach? Is it cognitive dissonance? Is it an attempt for a gun grab? Government derives their just power from the consent of the people. When that power is abused, it is the right and the duty of the people to throw off an unjust government. Alexander Hamilton wrote, "If the representatives of the people betray their constituents, there is then no recourse left but in the exertion of that original right of self-defense." Self-defense means the ability of the people to defend themselves from an unjust or oppressive government. This is accomplished through a well-regulated militia, by which the founders meant a militia that is organized, trained, and equipped. Therefore, the people have the inalienable right to bear arms.
Thank you.
And those sworn to uphold the Constitution.
We are not voting on any ordinances tonight either. Thank you.
Understand.
The next
Just
one
information.
is Steve Altshuler.
Even though you're not voting, there are some things that are important to hear. There you go. Thank you. Steve Altshuler, 1555 Taylor Drive, Longmont. So everyone wants our schools and our kids to be safe, and there are many ways to do that. Destroying our Constitution and aborting the rights of honest Americans is not an acceptable remedy. Look at Chicago and other cities. No matter what laws you pass, criminals will always get their guns. I'm going to read you from an article. There's a term called defensive gun use, which is called DGU. William English, a PhD from Georgetown University, conducted the largest ever study on defensive gun use in the United States. In all, he surveyed 54,000 individuals over the age of 18. 17,000 were gun owners. The results of that, and here are the results. 1/3, 32% of all U.S. adults over the age of 18 own firearms. Nearly 1/3 of those gun owners have used a firearm to defend themselves or their property, and that figure excludes military service, police work, or work as a security guard. What these numbers mean is that defensive gun use happens about 1.67 million times a year. So why don't we hear about these incidents? Mainly because the vast majority of cases, 82% according to the latest study, no one is shot, no one gets injured, and in fact, no shots are fired. And thus, the police never even hear about it. In other words, all it takes is a mere display or mention of a firearm to make assailants seek easier victims. I'm going to skip down here. In a 1995 study cited by the Congressional Research Service, they estimated that 2.1 to 2.5 million defensive gun uses per year. A 1997 study commissioned by the National Institute of Justice put the number at 4.7 million defensive gun uses per year. Even a study ordered by the Obama administration concluded that almost all national survey estimates indicate that defensive gun uses by victims are at least as common as offensive uses by criminals. An estimate of an annual of between 500,000 and more than 3 million times per year. And this is an Obama study. So you talk about guns, you talk about safety, but people deserve to keep themselves safe in their home, or when they're driving around, or when they're at church. And we all want our kids to be safe, but disarming honest citizens is not the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. George Tristan?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Peck and council members. My name is George Tristan, and I live at 1703 Whitehall Drive. The intent of gun control advocates is well-meaning, and in their minds is in the best interests of community residents and our children. I will give anyone who advocates for gun control laws the benefit of the doubt that their intent is to increase public safety. The matter of public safety is something that everyone should agree on as being a critically important matter. How we increase public safety is where many disagree. I have learned in my lifetime that having good intentions is rarely enough to support my decisions and actions. In the past, some of my short-sighted decisions and actions, while almost always being well-intended, have resulted negatively and sometimes have been considered an exercise in poor judgment. I've learned that by taking a more comprehensive approach on any given issue and considering the many unintended consequences that may occur, that the results will almost always end more positively. According to the 2021 statistics published by the Colorado Department of Public Health, when the number of deaths attributed to firearms are compared to those of drug overdose, nearly 7 times the number of Coloradans died from drug overdose. Many local officials are urgently sounding the call to enact gun control laws to increase public safety. However, they do not seem to have the same sense of urgency when addressing the problem of drug addiction and the death toll attributed to overdose. Many people are quick to blame a perceived mental health crisis as the root cause of drug addiction and the increase in crime. I believe that there are many other significant contributing factors, including the legislators and judges who are responsible for lowering bail requirements, reducing felony convictions, and issuing slap-on-the-wrist sentencing, which undermines the courageous work done by law enforcement. Other compounding factors include the legalization of drugs, most recently magic mushrooms, because we didn't learn from the disastrous 2014 decision to legalize marijuana that made Colorado a drug tourist location and can be attributed in large part to the out-of-control homelessness plaguing our communities. Other additional factors include creating needle injection sites and implementation of illegal migrant sanctuary laws that enable the drug cartels to traffic drugs like fentanyl into our communities. In summary, please do not enact any gun control laws. These will not increase public safety. On the contrary, law-abiding citizens will become less safe. Instead, please have the courage to do the hard work and look into the root causes of the so-called mental health crisis plaguing our communities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, George. Polly Christensen.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Polly Christensen, 410 Judson Street. I'm here to speak about the City Council statement on gun legislation. I exclude from my comments Councilor Sean McCoy because he had nothing to do with any of this. This is a cleverly written document, but I urge you to reject it because it is cowardly, it is inaccurate, and it is useless. Since the June 23, 2022 Supreme Court decision, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, this body has been asked again and again and again to pass meaningful gun violence prevention ordinances for Longmont. Every other large municipality in Boulder County did so immediately and unanimously. Mayor Peck quickly stepped up and came up with 5 proposed ordinances with consultation with the city's legal department. Not one of you stood by any of these proposals. As a body, you've done nothing but stall, saying we would have to change the culture first. Really? That's not City Council's job or within its possibilities. Saying we have to see what the state does first. The state legislature immediately did act by passing legislation saying that municipalities could make stricter laws. Now, 8 months later, we have a statement that repeatedly states the City Council is powerless, and it makes the preposterous statement somehow linking general crime and car theft with mass shootings and suicide, stating that expanding ERPO, which is extreme risk protection ordinances or red flag laws, and waiting periods, quote, would not have made a difference. Studies from Duke University, Johns Hopkins, and state data from California have shown that waiting periods do reduce suicide rates by 7.5 to 14%, and mass shootings have been greatly reduced by ERPOs. People coming from out of prisons are not the ones who need mental health care, and they're not committing suicide. Young people living in despair are committing suicide. Suicide by guns is 90% successful by any other method. It has a 10% success rate. Have the courage to do your jobs and increase Longmont's waiting periods and expand the restrictions on open carry in Longmont. Please act. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Shaquille Dalal.
Shaquille Dalal, 219 Francis Street in the Bone Farm neighborhood. I'm here to discuss the contrast between fear and hope. My neighbors are afraid. They are afraid that they are often here at City Council letting you know that they do not want their neighborhood to change. They do not want more housing. They do not want more neighbors. When they inevitably appeal the Planning and Zoning Board decision to allow construction to proceed, they will want you to vote to prevent more people like me from living there. They will have their reasons. Parking, height, prairie dogs, clay pipes, runoff, mountain views. When hearing their concerns, I have a simple suggestion. Do not attempt to address their concerns. You cannot. Because no matter how many concessions the developer or planning and zoning or you make, at the end of the day, they will still not want more housing to be built. They are asking you to prove a negative. They want you and the developer to prove that they will not be inconvenienced in any way, no matter how minor, by the addition of more housing to the neighborhood. I find this attitude unneighborly, unwelcoming, and unworthy of the good people who I know to be my neighbors. It is because they are motivated by fear. They are afraid of change. So rather than accept that change is coming and choosing how to bend it to their benefit, they are trying to force the city to choose the same path as Boulder and San Francisco, and in doing so, putting the city on a death spiral of unaffordability. So I'm here today to ask you, members of council, and my neighbors who disagree with me, to spend more energy focusing on your hopes. What do you want for the future? For your children's future? What kind of city do we want to leave for the people who will live here after we are all dead? Here is what I want. I want a city made of a diverse group of people, rich in the culture they bring and the circumstances by which they got here. I want a city ready to withstand the changing climate. I want the people in that city to have the highest quality of life while having the capacity to mend that damage. I want a city filled with walkable streets where people know their neighbors, and where the ability to live in a great neighborhood isn't determined by how much money they have. I want dense, affordable, attainable, people-focused housing solutions, and I want to start building them today. Build on Bone Farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaquille. Michael Schnauzmeiger.
Thank you, Mayor Peck and Council. I am Michael Schnauzmeier, 69 Hover Street, and I'm here to submit a proposal for Bronco funding as directed by city staff. This September marks the 10-year anniversary of the 2013 flood event that devastated the Longmont community. In the decades since, the city has done a great job in pursuing execution of its $130 million investment in the RSVP flood mitigation project. Over this decade, there has also been increasing recognition of the triple threats of climate change, environmental breakdowns, and related social equity challenges. As the city grows close to completion of the RSVP project, it is important that we begin to implement a vision for protecting the long-term environmental preservation of the St. Vrain corridor and our vast investment in it. In that regard, there may be no more meaningful way to invest in youth activities than to provide opportunities to learn about stewardship of the natural world and its vital ecosystems. That is the goal of Yes Longmont, the Youth Environmental Stewardship Program presented to you. Over the course of 40 years, the SPREE program of the Denver-based Greenway Foundation has engaged with over 100,000 urban students in doing just that. Their award-winning environmental education activities have had tremendous impact on Denver, and the foundation has generously offered to assist in creating a local nonprofit affiliate tailored to the Longmont youth community or location needs and resources. Yes, Longmont presents an opportunity for the city to capitalize on the value of the Greenway Foundation's decades and wealth of experience to ensure a successful outcome of this proposal. SPREE prioritizes environmental education through kids simply having fun. The Greenway Foundation is committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and seeks to engage underserved youth populations, including those in the ADHD spectrum. Often careers in environmental fields have grown out of SPREE learning experiences and internships. The Yes Longmont proposal can play a vital role in ensuring a thriving and healthy St. Vrain watershed. More importantly, it offers a proven approach to introducing our youth to the importance of stewardship of the environment and planetary ecosystems upon which their very future depends. Making this commitment to both our city's youth and the St. Vrain presents an exceptional way to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of the 2013 flood event and Longmont's investment in a flourishing future. I've left you with proposal copies and links to the SPREE website, which I was hoping to have on the screen here tonight for you, for learning more about the Greenway Foundation, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Emmy Dallas.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. I'll be really quick. It's super late. Thank you, Moms Demand Action. I'm really glad to see you here, but that's not why I'm here. I've lived in Longmont for 23 years. I live at 1622 Green Place. I am very in love with this town. I've worked for many different event-related jobs. Currently, I work for the Longmont Humane Society. I'm on the board at the Firehouse Arts Center. I'm very into this community, and I'm very into Bond Farm. And I really believe that we should build. And I have 2 adult children who would love to stay in Longmont, and they work here, and they've been born and raised here. And, you know, when I hear some of my neighbors have been like hitting me with flyers and saying like, you know, we don't want to ruin the character of this neighborhood, or we, you know, I don't even know what that even means, because Longmont is all kinds of characters, you know? That's what I love about this place. But it kind of makes me feel like we're here, so shut the door behind us and no one else is allowed. It's very unwelcoming, but also there are people here, like my children, who would love to stay and live here, and they would love to live in Longmont, buy a home eventually. But with this attitude that I keep hearing in our neighborhood about we don't have room for all this growth, but I feel like we have a lot of room. My husband Alex and I actually live in a 4-plex on the bottom in Green Place, where there are 12 townhouses on about an acre and a half. And we love our life there. I mean, at 4th of July, we had a Foursquare tournament in the middle of our cul-de-sac. You know, we have cookie bake-offs. We love each other. I mean, well, not necessarily, but it's fun to know our neighbors, you know? And I would really love to see more of that in Longmont, and especially in the Old Town neighborhood. I'm just very into, let's give people a chance to live in a very cool part of town, you know? I like walkability, I like density. I would really like to see this development include some mixed use opportunity. I mean, walking to a coffee shop would be super awesome. I'm a big proponent of Westside Tavern, for instance, or Left Hand Brewing, or Native Roots. Those are things that I can just walk to. I'd love to see more of that. And I don't really have a very strong stance on it, because I haven't really seen as much as you know, everybody else maybe has. I'm just here to say I'm not immediately pushing back. I really would love to see what they have to offer, and I'm very excited to see the growth that Longmont has to offer. This is a super great town. You know, Next Light, are you kidding me? We have a ton of things to offer, and we have only upward to go, and I can't wait to see what this community can give to us. So please build in Bone Farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. Taylor Wickland.
Sorry, tired. Evening, Mayor, Council. My name's Taylor Wickland. I live at 1704 Short Place. I was born and raised here in Longmont and live currently in the Bond Farm neighborhood. And I have a couple critiques on the proposed development. Number one, the development is too small. If we're creative, we can fit over 100 units there and still have a park and commercial activity and, you know, and not be a tall condo building, even though I'm not opposed to that either. Number two, it doesn't promote that mixed use that Emmy was talking about. It's like Westside Tavern is a gem in the neighborhood. The fact that we get to walk, and that's what density is all about, is promoting that walkability. So it's like, why not have a small grocer, cafe, eatery, bakery, you know, whatever some entrepreneur wants to create, see what survives. And then also, contrary to the neighbor's opinion, density reduces traffic congestion and increases walkability. Density also increases supply to then reduce the housing costs for people to live here. And most importantly, what some neighbors are proposing is a continuation of R1 single-family homes, and that will destroy the climate. According to the Center for Clean Air Policy, a single-family home, even driving a hybrid, produces twice the amount of carbon than an average townhome driving an average car. And I always ask myself, how did we get here? Why is housing so expensive? Why do we have to fight NIMBYs all the time? For that, I encourage the council to research our discriminatory history. Research the formation of R1 zoning. Limiting the majority of development to single-family residential has racist origins with a continuation of a classist implementation while destroying the climate. Walk around Old Town, and you will see a diversity of grandfathered housing, multiplexes, small apartment blocks, condos, and of course, single-family homes. most of which is illegal to build today, as much of even Old Town is zoned single family. We must go back to pre-1940s mixed-use development, which the rest of the world says that's how you build things. This development pattern has mixed-use, walkable neighborhoods to get basic necessities. This development has diverse housing stock to reduce housing costs and allow choice in the housing market. This style development produces more revenue for the city to afford transit, parks, protected bikeways, staff, safer streets. If we really want to take housing, equity, transportation, climate action seriously, we must follow other cities and states across the country and eliminate R1 zoning and make middle housing legal again. This is what true responsible development looks like, improving life for future generations long after we are gone. And I encourage we build even more than 70 townhomes, build density, allow mixed use, reform zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Christy Dillon.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and Council. My name's Christy Dillon, and I'm at 528 Ryder Ridge Drive. I'm here tonight to thank you for addressing the issue of local gun legislation with your statement. I've read it multiple times and ask that it is approved tonight and that the commitments within it are upheld. I especially appreciate that you haven't let this very difficult topic just fade into the backdrop of a new year and all the other many issues that you have to manage as being part of Longmont City Council. Over the last several months, I've met several parents that have chosen to either homeschool their kids or are planning to move out of the country when their children are of school age because they don't believe that they'll be safe in schools. I meet people who are afraid to attend large public events like parades and concerts because they're afraid of being the victim of a mass shooting. As individual citizens, we can connect with our local representatives at the state level and voice these concerns, but I also ask that as a group, you amplify our voices around gun violence to those in the position to make change. I fully understand the need to do this within the parameters of the Constitution and respecting rights. We need our leaders to do the difficult, strategic work that must be done because the status quo that we're currently living isn't good enough for us or for future generations. Thank you again for addressing this with your statement.
Thank you, Christy. Seeing no one else on the sign-up list, I am going to close public invited to be heard. And now we are at the consent agenda. So I'd like the clerk to please read the items on the consent agenda into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance introduced on the consent at this meeting will have a second reading and public hearing on January 24th, 2023. 9A is ordinance 2023-02, a bill for an ordinance amending chapter 2.20 of the Longmont Municipal Code related to city departments. 9B is ordinance 2023-03, a bill for an ordinance amending chapter 4.12 of the Longmont Municipal Code on purchasing. 9C1 is ordinance 2023-04, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the Dry Creek Business Park rezoning from MUR, Mixed Use Regional Center, to MUE, Mixed Use Employment, generally located at the northeast corner of Dry Creek Drive and Likens Gulch Road. 9C2, ordinance 2023-05, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the Dry Creek Business Park Concept Plan Amendment, generally located at the northeast corner of Dry Creek Drive and Likens Gulch Road. 9C3 is ordinance 2023-06, a bill for an ordinance approving the land use amendment to the envisioned Longmont Comprehensive Plan for Dry Creek Business Park, generally located at the northeast corner of Dry Creek and Likens Gulch. 9D is resolution 2023-01, a resolution amending the financial policies of the city of Longmont for 2023. 9E is resolution 2023-02, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing agreements between the City of Longmont and Union Reservoir Company for the purchase of the Longfellow property. 9F is Resolution 2023-03, a resolution of the Longmont City Council terminating the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County concerning use, maintenance, and repair of Quicksilver Road. 9G, designate the city's website as the official posting location for city council meeting notices for 2023. 9H, appoint Matt Bolkovats to the MOPC Pension Board.
Thank you. Are there any council members that want to pull items off this agenda? Councilwoman Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. No, unless no one else has something they'd like to pull, I move the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda has been moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor McCoy. Let's vote. So let's take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We are now at ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. The first is a bill 2023-01, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as the Carnegie Library Building located at 457 4th Avenue, Longmont, Colorado, to Longmont Public Media. Are there any questions from council? Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. Can I have a motion? So it's been moved by Councilor Waters and seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. Great, thank you. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So that passes unanimously. The next thing on our agenda is the general business. And the first one is we already did because we did it during presentations, so we can mark that off of the list. The second one is approve a city council statement on gun legislation, and I would like to invite Assistant City Manager Sandy Cedar to the podium.
Mayor Peck, members of council, you may remember having discussions about this statement, and this is the draft that hopefully encapsulates everything that you had discussed. So it's up to you from this point forward. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Do we have any questions from council on this statement? Councilor Martin is first here.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. This revised statement accurately, I think, expresses all of the other concerns we have about public safety matters, and specifically public safety matters that result from recent actions of the legislature and the court. So I very much like that. I have a friendly amendment to propose, which I would like to change the title to City Council Statement on Legislation Affecting Public Safety, because it's not just about gun laws anymore. And while I'm incorporating small things into this motion, there is a typo in the paragraph that begins, "We, the Longmont City Council," and I'd like to get it in the third line of that paragraph. It says Colorado State statutes, and I'm pretty sure it's statutes. So I'd like to include in my motion the correction of that typo, but the title change is what's important.
Legislation on public safety.
Yes.
Statement on legislation.
Legislation affecting public safety.
So is that a motion?
Yes, I move that we change the title that
Okay.
way.
I'll second that motion.
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Martin, seconded by Counselor Waters, to change the statement to legislation on public safety. City Council statement on public safety.
Statement on legislation
Affecting.
affecting public
Affecting.
safety.
Okay. I
And the
see
typo.
Counselor McCoy, but you,
It's about, it's after this.
oh, okay, okay. So, any discussion on that? Seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Do both.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. I didn't vote. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, Counselor Martin. Now, Counselor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I'm in support of this sort of gun restrictions, in support of gun restrictions and reasonable, quickly and reasonably and as quickly as possible to come up with some sort of ideas that we can actually do that will actually address that. I will be supporting the statement. I do not see it as the end of the discussion, but the beginning of what I hope is a step in the right direction. So I'll be supporting this. I have said before when I was running that as a teacher, I was often tired of having to do lockdown drills because folks that had their felt that their Second Amendment rights superseded everybody else's rights, and I'm pretty tired of that. And also the fact that I don't think you need to carry a gun to go shopping for eggs, milk, and bread.
Counselor Waters.
Just, I have some information to share that's germane. Do we want to, is there a motion that we should make on this to adopt it? If so, I'll make that motion. Then I'd like to come behind that with some information to share.
So make the motion first, and then you can.
Yeah, I have moved adoption of this as amended.
Okay. So Counselor Waters moved the adoption of our City Council statement as amended on public safety. And it's been seconded by Counselor McCoy. Let's vote. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye. All those opposed? So that passes unanimously. And now, Counselor Waters, you have a statement. Oh.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. Well, it's less a statement than just some information. When we moved, the night we moved the date to take up the further discussion of ordinances, and I think it may have been the same night that Councilmember Martin moved that we bring this statement back, I made the comment about engaging with the public, and in spite of what we heard tonight, I do think we have leadership responsibilities to influence the culture if we can.
Okay.
To see it more peaceful and safer community. So here's just some information. Rotary clubs in the Longmont area, that's the Longmont Rotary Club, the Niwot Club, and the Twin Peaks Club, have reserved the museum on the night of February 15th. For a program to which the public's invited. The topic is peace and peacemaking. There will be a keynote speaker. There will be a facilitated discussion. I've been asked to do the call to action at the end of that program. And I've said to my fellow Rotarians, be careful what you ask for, because I'm going to call the community to an action. And I hope you all had sitting at your desk when you came in this morning this evening. Feels like we've been here since, yes, this morning. The title is, it's a call to action, Project Peace and Safety. Did you all get that? So, for what, I'm not going to go into that. What I am going to do that night is invite the community to embrace an opportunity to be involved in the discussion. We heard earlier tonight from Shaquille, and what we hear a lot of in this council chamber, and I've said this for the 5 years I've been here, every Tuesday night we hear a lot of worst fears. And we hear them about all kinds of things. And we hear them about whether it's firearms or bond farm or, you name the topic. And I appreciate Shaquille's encouraging us to just take a moment to be less driven by fears and more driven by our hopes, best hopes for a future of greater peace and safety. So what I've laid out is a process, and Mayor Peck, you asked me to write it up, so I've written it up. This is not intended to be something for City Council or for the city of Longmont, but it's maybe something the city council members or members of the staff would want to embrace. I am hoping that service clubs, congregations, professional organizations, schools, or, you know, the education committee might take a look at it and say, you know, it's worth spending 2.5 hours for us to just envision what kind of a community we'd like to have, we'd like to live into, that's characterized by more peace and safety. And if we could have that conversation just enough times, and I've laid out, if people will do it and share the results with me, what I'll do with those results and bring back to the council, and publish for the community. Not as a burden for the council to carry, but if there are things that come out of this that we ought to consider, along with the legislation that we've already talked about, or other ideas that we might start a conversation that would unfold a little differently when we get to June, depending on how that conversation unfolds, you know, between now and then. Anyway, it's an invitation. It's open to the public. There'll be an opportunity for people to register for the event. I hope folks will come, and I hope when the time comes that people will seriously consider an opportunity to be in conversation with the people they care about the future they'd like to live into. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Can I make a suggestion? Do you mind? The organizations that you said you would like to attend, perhaps if you had a flyer that you could actually send to them, because they're probably not watching right now. So. Can
I just respond?
Yes.
Thank you for the suggestion. There will be, as soon as I get it, there is a colleague is working on a flyer, and I will get it, I'll send it. I want to say again, this is not, I'm not trying to put this council in a position to carry water for anybody on anything, right? But I'll send you the invitation to the program, and then decide if this is something that people would want to do. I do know, I've talked to a number of leaders in town, of faith communities and professional associations and service clubs. And I know that I've had an enthusiastic response from some that they would like to embrace this. And I'll share the invitation and encourage folks to show up. So thank you.
You're welcome. I just want to make one statement about this statement. I think it's worth passing, and we passed it, but I am a person of action, and I think that having 10-day waiting periods does not affect the Second Amendment as far as the Constitution goes, and signage on any establishment that sells guns. That does not take away anybody's rights. So I was very unhappy that we couldn't even say that as leaders in the community. So with that, I'll let it go. The next thing on our general business is, I'm sorry, did you, Mr. Artist, Chief Artist, did you have something that you wanted to say about this gun legislation?
City Manager Dominguez just asked me to make sure I was here in case there was any questions.
Okay.
So really, I'm just here for your availability for you.
Good, we can go home early. Earlier. So the second thing on the agenda is our 2023 Draft City Council Retreat Agenda.
And Mayor Peck, I do want to mention one thing on the last item. So one of the things that you mentioned in your statement is that you are planning to meet with state legislators to discuss this. That is the first topic tomorrow at the legislative dinner.
Thank you. And that is open to the public.
It is open to the public. It starts at 5:30. Senator Hawkes Lewis is able to join us remotely for a small window of time right at 5:30, and Representative McCormick should be there for the entire evening. I think you've seen the agenda. It's posted out on the city's website as well. So we'll start dinner at 5:15 in case people would like to get something before Senator Hawkes Lewis is there at 5:30 remotely.
And did you respond to the email that Senator McCormick sent, or Representative McCormick?
Yes, I believe so. We've been conversing all weekend.
Fantastic.
So, yes,
Thank
I think
you.
we're all set for tomorrow night. But yes, it's a public event. Starts at 5:30, and this topic is the first one on the agenda. At the Senior Center. At the Senior Center. Thank you. 910 Longs Peak Avenue.
Okay. And the public can attend.
Absolutely.
But there will be no PITBH. Public invited to be heard.
Okay, so on the council retreat agenda, what you have in front of you is is kind of if we all put it all together, right? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Counselor Martin.
Thank you. Sandy, I did not get the idea that necessarily that Senator Jaquez Lewis was going to be allocating any time to listening to us. Could you then please really put a rush on the title and typo change on this statement that we have just passed and send it to her?
Happy to do so. Already made the changes, so yes,
Thank you.
no problem.
Perfect.
Yep, absolutely. And you are right, because there was some miscommunication and she didn't get some forwarded emails. She didn't receive the invitation until more recently. So she'll be there for just a little while in between other meetings. But she did get the entire agenda packet with all of the concerns listed as well. And we'll continue to engage her throughout the season, which started yesterday. Yeah. Okay, so on the council retreat agenda, what I went ahead and did was just kind of took everything that everybody had suggested, laid it out in a draft agenda for you to consider. At the time, the location was TBD, but we do have confirmation that the museum is available if that's the place that you would like to have your retreat this year. So we'd be happy to set that tonight, so that's one question. Second question is this flow generally what you're looking for? We did combine some areas that we thought maybe could work together. And then do you want to try to keep it to one day? We could probably fit it into one day. Or what I would recommend is that we just list it all without necessarily a ton of timing to it. And when it rolls over into Saturday, that we're able to take that time. So those would be my suggestions, but the draft agenda starts at 8:30 on March 10th. Goes through a welcome and agenda, some team building and personality training. We actually have found some interesting personality training that discusses conflict styles, so that kind of mashes a couple of things that you all had talked about. Some training about engagement in the digital world, bringing in some resources from Colorado Municipal League around social media, as requested there. Also, maybe taking a look at an abbreviated courageous conversation piece to that as well. That's kind of a tough training. It's a very long training, so we're going to try to see if we can bring in some aspects of that. And then some tips and tricks on how to brainstorm responses to residents and constituents. So that's kind of the first section. Second section is grounding with Harold. So let's talk a little bit about what the customer satisfaction survey says. What do the employee surveys tell us right now to get you a little bit of information from Harold. Presentation on current core work and projects as requested around what is it that you need, that Harold needs from the council. And then have a little lunch break and then jump right into those priorities, 2023 and beyond. We can absolutely change this up to allocate some more time if you decide, yes, 2 days is what we're gonna do. That might be a good break from day 1 to day 2, if that's what you decided to do. Council priorities for 2023 and beyond, that includes affirming the vision, updating the work plan, the 2020 work plan, and then discussing some of those roadmaps that you talked about around renewable energy, climate emergency work, beneficial electrification, Envision Longmont, prioritization of that work as the 2023 focus, creation of those goals and outcomes, a process for managing that so that you have a little better idea of what's happening as it's happening. And then finally, a lightning round brainstorm around what would you change? What laws would you change? So we have this up on the Engage Longmont site as one of the suggestions that people can give you around what laws would you change if you could change them. We haven't seen any suggestions lately, but if you decide that this is part of the retreat, we'd be happy to kind of reactivate, reinvigorate that site on Engage Longmont. So, and then there would be public invite to be heard on this particular agenda.
Great. So Councilor Hidalgo-Farring.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That's pretty ambitious for one day.
Yes.
So I would still recommend, I would still like to see 2 days, especially as we're looking at having, asking us for input. The list of our agenda today was supposed to, it didn't seem very long, but it's taking us a while. So I also believe that even the team building part, the courageous conversation training, it just seems like that's a really short amount of time to cover all those. So, I would think that if we want to have a robust conversation and an in-depth conversation and time for processing and reflection, I would like to to go on for 2 days, and I apologize to the staff.
I would love to have a motion on that if that would be.
So I would move to extend this, this schedule rather than 1 day into 2 days.
Do we have any discussion on that? You do? No. Try it again, please. Councilor Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we were all really, really clear in the first discussion that we wanted a full 2-day session and dig deep. So I definitely concur with Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, Senator. Maybe one day, huh? One day.
Yes.
So, anyway, for that, I was a little, I don't disagree with any of the stuff on this agenda, but I was a little bit blindsided to see it so soon, since we've got all the way until March to finalize it. I didn't prioritize my work on it, and I was going through the council work plan as we discussed, seeing things that we have never heard a report on that's on that. I was going to give you an itemized list, and I think there may be a couple of goals on the work plan that are not addressed by the list just because nobody suggested them in, explicitly. So I would like to have an idea, have an opportunity to flesh this out a little bit more, as opposed to getting, if I submit the work that I've done already, I say, well, the council already voted to finalize the agenda. I need more time.
Councilmember Martin, I completely understand that. Part of the reason that I'm trying to get it finalized early is because the staff needs some time to pull together that work plan and to be able to get our reporting out as well. So you're right, this is not, I would agree that when you're talking about the roadmap portion, there may be some other roadmaps that we may want to add. I'm happy to bring that section back again once we have that update from the staff on the current work plan. That might actually help you to make some decisions on what you'd like to focus on in the retreat. Happy to do something like that.
Well, how about if I commit to give you my list of things that I think we need to report on by Monday?
I think that's more than enough time. Would be happy to extend that to the rest of the council as well, if there's some things that you'd like to hear reports about beforehand.
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, can that be a friendly amendment to your motion?
I will accept that.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. It has been amended. So the motion was to move our agenda from 1 day to 2 day retreat. And the amendment is to have Councilor Martin submit to Assistant City Manager Sandy Cedar some other things on the work plan that she would like added to this agenda.
And I would extend that to the whole council, of course, yes.
But we need, first of all, to vote on the amendment. So.
Did anybody second the amendment?
Oh, wait. I'll second the amendment. So, we are, pardon me?
We'd be happy to bring that back then after council submits other suggestions. I'd be happy to bring back a second draft showing the 2 days and what everybody suggests.
Thank you. So the amendment is to allow Councilor Martin or anyone else really on council to submit other things they want to see on this retreat agenda by Monday, which is, I don't know what date that is.
It's the 16th. Our offices are closed on Monday in observance of Martin Luther King Day, so how about Tuesday?
Well, they can send it on Monday.
They can. You can send it anytime you want.
So that motion has been made and seconded. Let's vote unless there is discussion on that. Seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed. Okay. So that passes unanimously. Now we need to vote on the motion with the amendment in it. And let's just vote on that because I don't want to repeat it. Yes, with the amended motion as amended. So all those in favor, raise your hand. Aye. All those opposed. Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
So Mayor Peck, what I'll do is I'll wait for folks to go ahead and send me anything else on Monday/Tuesday, Tuesday 5 PM, we'll say.
Okay.
And then I'll rework this agenda with a 2-day and to make sure that I'm including any additional items. Generally, does this seem appropriate based on what you've asked? Okay. And we'll spread it out to make it a 2-day and give some real time for the training and things, so.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Okay, great, thanks.
So we are at the final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on any item? Seeing none, we'll close the final public invited to be heard. We are now at mayor and council comments. Do we have any comments from council? Councilor Hidalgo Faring?
I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to extend gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity for us to share, what we have in mind as far as the multipurpose dome and the use of that money. It was very confusing, I think, and I am thinking, just throwing this out there, that I would like to make a motion next time to allow staff, I'm asking for input. There's so much they can do, and I don't want to push, they cannot do any research or provide me anything, or provide us both with anything substantive without taking the time to just pull up the books. And they can't do that without council approval. So just, to kind of have that, there are just some pieces that we were not able to provide, information we were not able to provide without having that piece. So, that's something I'm not gonna let it go. And to even determine, is this something feasible? Do we need to rethink this? So, that, I wanted to weigh in on that, and thank you for giving us that opportunity to share. This Bronco money, it can serve our youth very, very well. So, and with all of the ideas, they all mean well. So, thanks for that.
Thank you. Councilor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I didn't mention this because this wasn't germane when we were talking about our statement. But in anticipation of the meeting tomorrow evening, I've been wondering, would we see amended language to any of the statutes we have concerns about? The agenda lays out the areas in which we have concern, but no specific recommendations. And in the absence of that, I've drafted one, not to represent the council. And I footnoted this is from Tim Waters as a resident, not as a member of City Council. But I want you to know, and I'm happy to pass this out. I brought copies. Okay. I'm happy to pass it out if you'd like to see it, so that you're not surprised by what I intend to hand to Karen McCormick tomorrow night.
Okay. Yes, please pass it out. And then I will call on Councilor McCoy. I'm sorry, Councilor Waters, is that it?
Well, I'm happy to respond to a question, just so anybody who cares would know.
I think that probably, and correct me if you think differently, that maybe at the dinner tomorrow night, you could answer questions.
Part of the reason I'm passing this out now, I'm going to be late tomorrow night. I've committed to do a presentation on our early childhood proposal to a group, and I'm going to run over to the meeting as soon as I finish that. So I'll get there before we wrap up. I just didn't know where you might be in the discussion. So.
We'll hold our questions for you.
Well, no, I'm happy to answer questions if you have them, whatever time. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. So my question is just kind of more of a housekeeping sort of issue around boards and commissions and my role on those and everything. So maybe we can talk at some point here about what that looks like. I know that many of you, well, all of you have been assigned those, and we can figure out, where I fit in with that. So
I would love to talk to you about that. Let's schedule some time.
yeah, sounds very good.
That would be great.
Thank you.
So now we're at city manager remarks. Harold?
It's Mayor, Council.
Thank you. City Attorney Eugene?
No comments, Mayor?
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for everything you've done and for hanging in there with us tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So that has been moved and seconded to adjourn. Let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.